What's up, guys? This is Carter Thomas with a Coin Mastery podcast exclusive, the first of its kind. And we're kicking things off with Vinny Lingham, who is one of the most popular founders in the crypto space. Now, if you don't know, Vinny is an entrepreneur, a dragon, an angel, and a shark. He's a 4-time successful startup founder and CEO. His latest venture, Civic, just sold $33 million worth of tokens during its June 2017 token sale event. And he was previously the founder and CEO of Gyft with a Y and Yola Incorporated, YOLA. That sold the first data corporation in 2014. Vinny has also appeared as one of the investors or dragons on South Africa's Dragon's Den reality TV series. And he is also one of the sharks on the follow-up to Dragon's Den, Shark Tank, South Africa. Vinny and I had a great discussion, and we talked all about growing up in Africa and his journey through entrepreneurship all the way up into Civic. And we get into some details about Civic, the business, about what makes it unique, what sort of blockchain it's built on, and how the tech is going to be so much superior to the current identity solutions out there. Things like getting credit reports or verifying who you are really the big things that he's trying to, or him and Civic are trying to disrupt. Very exciting discussion, very exciting guy. I feel very fortunate to be able to spend some time with Vinny and chat with him about this. And I hope you enjoy this conversation with Vinny Lingham. Vinny, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks, Carter. Good to be here.
I was just thinking, I think you are actually just down a couple stops down on the Caltrain. You're down in Palo Alto, right?
I am. That's where I hang out.
I often say that Palo Alto is where problems go to die on pretty much every level. It's pretty much Pleasantville down there.
It's a good way of looking at it. Not quite Pleasanton. That's across the bay.
Exactly. So just to rewind, as I was really diving into your story and what got you to this point, you grew up in South Africa, and specifically in the kind of southeast part of South Africa. A couple of years ago, I went to Cape Town, went down to Muizenberg, had an amazing time surfing, like incredible country. One thing I did notice is that even in 2014, there was a distinct difference between South Africa and, say, New York or San Francisco or the U.S. or even Europe from a digital and tech standpoint. And so from your perspective, in the 90s, going to high school and then college in Cape Town, I can only imagine what that was like. But you ended up building multiple companies in the global tech space. How did you get exposed to that while growing up in South Africa?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'll be honest. I think that South Africa was both good and bad for me in many ways. I actually didn't grow up in Cape Town. I grew up in a small town, the southeast coast called East London, which is probably 300,000 population, kind of small town. And it was a small downtown district. No one ever went there. You kind of lived in the suburbs and the sort of the outskirts area. Well, it's not rural, but it was more like a suburban lifestyle. The only exposure I got to the big cities like Johannesburg and Cape Town was once a year. I'd go away for I think it was like a week or two to play the annual national chess championships in the country. So it was great because I got to go to all the different big cities and spend some time there and saw that I got a perspective on how much smaller my part of the world was. And so that was like my sort of eye-opening view on business and whatnot. When I finished high school, I moved to University of Cape Town, studied in Cape Town for a while, did some entrepreneurial stuff. I managed a rock band, I did some events. I had my own little event company while I was a student. Dropped out of my final year, not because I wanted to. I just the economy just hit a bad turn in '98. I was probably the top programmer in my class. I think easily everyone would probably agree to that. But I just didn't have the money to finish. So moved to Johannesburg to I did a little small startup type thing, vehicle financing website called autofinance.coza. Sold it to one of the VC funds, or rather to corporate VC funds, and joined them to try and build a different business they were busy building. The dot-com collapse happened, and I was out of a job very shortly, and then basically bumbled around job for a couple of years, corporate to corporate, stumbled upon an online marketing firm, got really into search engine marketing, started my own search engine marketing firm, built it up over 4 years. I figured out how to reverse engineer Google's ranking algorithm in the early days, and that basically gave me an edge. So we were able to get all the big clients on board. I had Walmart.com, for example, was our client for 5 years, and we were able to just rank ads on search engines. Sold the company in 2007, raised money for my next company in 2008, moved to San Francisco, and I've been here ever since. And I did that company was Yola, and then I did Gyft, which is the mobile gift card company, which we used Bitcoin and pretty successfully. Sold that to First Data in 2014. Started Civic in 2015, and here we are.
Here we are, and I think it's very important to point out that you're probably the only person on Earth that went from chess tour prodigy to managing a rock band. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
That's an amazing detail.
Observation.
One thing that I noticed, especially while doing my research on your story, is that a lot of your businesses and interests and a lot of your energy was inside of these large trends. Both, in the 90s, in 2003, which is in search engine marketing, while Google did their IPO, with companies that continued to happen all the way up to Gyft and now Civic. You were inside these explosive emerging worlds, whereas many business people I've talked to have been in industries that look at bubbles as kind of something that's happening on the side. How has being involved inside of these emerging markets, how has that framed your excitement for business? How has that changed the way you look at business, and how has that gotten you here?
Yeah, one of my best friends, Michael, he always says to me that he says that he's constantly amazed, and I suppose I just do it naturally, so I don't really see it from that perspective. But he's been amazed over the years watching me navigate into different industries. And he says, I've got this weird ability to see around corners. And I think that's kind of what I do. I look at what's happening next and what's around the next corner. And so again, the search. I was going on about search engine marketing in 2001. It was kind of like a fringe thing, and I was super excited. I was at the Google AdWords launch party. I was managing millions of dollars in paid search marketing spend, and I really got to understand the industry very well and became a leader in that space. And then, moved on to software as a service. I was one of the first guys to go on about freemium businesses and software as a service, and started a company in that space. And, again, same with mobile and gift cards and payments, etc. And now identity, right? So I had this weird sort of vibe to trying to call what the next big run is going to be. And you see now Equifax and Experian are both being hacked, and identity is a big, big issue. It's a little bit of just keeping my finger on the pulse of where things are, and rather thinking about the world as it should be versus the way the world is.
Sure. And along those lines with the search engine marketing, so you started in 2001, and by 2003 it was really screaming. Walk me through. So imagine you were at a party, or at a fundraiser or something, a networking event in 2001, 2002. And you're talking to people in business and explaining to them that you are building something in what's called search engine marketing, which back then was a very, very new idea, not unlike what I'm sure blockchain conversations for you are now. What was the conversation like back then? How much explanation did you need to know? How much skepticism was there from other people? What was that like?
Well, the skepticism was all-time high, but it was more the stupidity of it all. I'll recite back a couple of conversations to you, or maybe just one that sticks out. And it went something like this: "What do you do?" "I have a search engine marketing firm." "Oh, that's interesting. Like on Google?" Yeah, on Google, we put up ads for customers, and they pay for the ads, and we pay Google, and then we get some of the traffic and we convert that and make a revenue out of it. And we charge them fees. Really? So Google actually makes money? That's the conversation.
That's it.
It probably happened a couple of times. Google makes money. Like, they sell ads. Like, this is 2003, 2004. People had no idea like Google was such a monster, and it's pure ignorance.
Yeah, I mean, it's the similar conversation that I think a lot of people have now when they hear the word cryptocurrency and they're like, well, how could I spend that? And then you're talking about blockchain and their eyes kind of light up, and that's when they start to realize, oh, there's something behind this whole thing. This isn't just vaporware. What a concept. Exactly.
And so I've been through these industry cycles so many times in so many different industries that I'm just used to it. So I kind of like, well, I've actually stopped trying to explain things to people because I think sometimes it's just not worth it. And I think that, like, it's one of those things where as you grow and you go through life and you go through different experiences within industries and emerging industries and disruption, you learn that often it's probably best to let people just fall behind and try to sort of pull them forward, because the people who want to be progressive will be, and they'll learn at a rate faster than anyone else. And the people who don't want to be progressive, no matter how much you try and help them, it's not going to change the nature of their DNA and the way they think about the world.
Yeah, I think it's exactly right. I think some people are hardwired for slow movement and potentially living in the past, and some people are hardwired differently. And as technology and as business accelerates, what you see is what's happening is really the scoreboard of life. It's here's what it is, and that's an interesting segue into. You sold a lot of these companies too. I mean, these weren't just, hey, I built them and whatever. Like these turned into exits. Not only did you enter emerging markets, but you also were able to exit, which is something that a lot of people aren't able to do. They don't ride the wave on both sides. What did that exit strategy look like? Or was it premeditated? Did it serendipitously happen? But how did you leverage both the momentum of an emerging market and know that you should exit it at the right time, or at a beneficial time, I should say?
That's a good question. I think that there's a couple of things I've learned. First of all, I think my first company, I focused too much on trying to sell it, and I built it to be sold, and eventually I did get it sold. But I think it's probably the wrong thing in retrospect. If I focused on making money and not because we were profitable, we were doing well, and I was just like, oh well, I'll set up for big multiples and get a big exit, and then in order to get it bought, I felt that I hire more people and scale the thing up a bit more. So, and with scaling some industries and some businesses, it's often better not to bother trying to scale it, but just try and make it extremely profitable. And I mean, we had months we made like $500,000 a month profit, which was great. I mean, for a small team in Cape Town, that was huge. We would plow all that money back in, and then at the end of the day, when it came to exit, made a decent amount of cash, and it was an okay exit. But in retrospect, I probably would have made a lot more if I just kept the team lean and I focused on maximizing profits and not trying to get an equity based sale out of the company. Just keep it as a personal lifestyle business, because it wasn't. As much as we built technology, it wasn't a technology company. We were still depending on Google for the ecosystem. So I learned a lesson there, and the other lessons I learned around raising money and trying to sell the companies, and when you raise money, you kind of defaulting to have to having an exit at some point. Generally. With Gyft, I think it was a little different. Gyft was opportunistic. We were doing partnership deals and building the business. We had 2 buyers try and buy us, or 3, and we got a good exit, and that was great. My previous company with Yola, before that, we raised too much money, or we raised in a bad zone. You either raise like a ridiculous amount of money, like 150 million plus, and you go for an IPO, or you raise 5 or 10, keep it tight. But like when you're in the 40 million to 50 million range, it's generally, unless you've got like rocket ship growth and revenues, it's just a bad space to be. I mean, we had acquisition offers there, etc. Things didn't work out. There are lots of reasons why. I mean, I've got lots of lessons to tell over the years. But fundamentally, what's changed for me is focusing on really the value creation of the enterprise and making sure that you can create value for the actual users of the product and the business itself, and not focusing on the exit, not focusing on the investment, because that stuff just comes when you do things right.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that the timing of the market, I remember watching an interview of Mark Cuban, who obviously one of the most famous exits at the top of the bubble in the tech world. And he said something similar. It's like, if you think about the money and the timing of everything, it rarely works out. But if you focus on building something really great, the interest just builds because of the external forces that are happening. And it usually works out much better for everybody when you focus on just building something awesome, as opposed to trying to create a formula of how do I extract the most value from the hype around whatever the big trend is at the time.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And there's actually a book around this. It was written by, I read it recently. I think it was Jim Collins' most recent book. And, he just discusses how, like, companies that just, stay the course, focus on steady gains, steady returns over time, just outperform everyone else. I'll look up the name. I'll tell you in a second. But this is exactly it. Like this being, it was called Great by Choice, 2011. It's a good book. It's a really good book.
Cool. Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes for anyone who wants to check it out. So let's talk about Gyft. And I knew a bit about Gyft. I knew a bit about the gift card world. I think Raise.com is also in San Francisco, which is a pretty big secondary market for gift cards and things like that. And especially after reading your blog post about tokens eating the world, which I'll link to your blog posts, which are definitely worth anybody going and reading and checking out. It really dawned on me how much that gift card economy acts as a weird form of tokenization for a lot of these large companies. Target, Walmart, Amazon, Apple, anyone really putting out a lot of these, multi-billion-dollar market of unredeemed gift cards. At what point during the process of building Gyft did you start to see this secondary economy crystallizing in a way that got you thinking about things like tokens?
I think when we started Gyft, we didn't think about the secondary market in that sense. I think Raise did that differently. They're based in Chicago, actually. They may have an office in San Francisco, but we didn't even know about them at the time. I think we just focused on digitizing the existing plastic gift card market, moving into your device and making it easy to buy and send gift cards using your mobile app. So we didn't think about the secondary market. We knew there was a lot of waste in it, and people were getting huge discounts on their gift cards, but that opens up to money laundering and other issues which would require additional compliance, which we didn't want to have to do, etc. And we just sold new gift cards from merchants, and we made it a fun and easy experience for people.
And that, just for anybody listening, the gift card, I should say gift card business, because it really is kind of a secondary business. The reason why it is a secondary world is because the redemption rates are disproportionately low, which creates almost a secondary price world for seemingly the same amount of money, meaning you could potentially get a gift card for $100 on a secondary market for, let's say, $95, because the way the economics of supply and demand work in that world with the redemption rates are different than in the retail world. Is that an accurate way to describe it?
Yes, but the problem is where they came from. So there's a lot of stolen gift cards out there. And so a lot of these discounts are related to stolen gift cards. People, what they do is they go in, gift cards get stolen, people steal wallets, they take gift cards off, they go to a pawn shop, they drop it off there. And so it's a kind of a sketchy industry, and I didn't like it very much. But obviously there's legitimate people there as well. But I know in the secondary gift card market, I've been very skeptical about it for a long time. It's not to say it isn't a good business there. I mean, there was a company called Plastic Jungle that tried doing it, and they failed, and they went under. I think Raise is the only one that's actually managed to get the level of scale. But it's a different industry altogether. So it's not the use case. People are buying those gift cards to save money or get cheaper deals, and With Gyft, it was more about the giving experience, more like giving you, hey mom, happy birthday, happy Valentine's Day to your spouse, or whatever it is. Like, it's more about you not being able to get to a place in a point in time, but sending a digital gift card, and we had videos attached to your gift cards, and a fun experience, and it's more about giving.
Got it.
Yeah.
And that really segued into your latest venture, and I believe I remember reading somewhere you were having lunch with a friend who had just talked about how Bitcoin had hit, I believe, was it $30 or $40, and you ended up finally buying some Bitcoin from, I think it was just directly from your friend. But what was that like? What was your first introduction into actually owning your first Bitcoin?
So yeah, that was it. I mean, I had this conversation with him, and the conversation really was about us trying to save credit card fees and having the chargebacks we had in credit cards for stolen credit cards. And it was like, well, I had heard about Bitcoin at that point, and I knew, it seemed like a very fringy thing, which wasn't really going anywhere, and they had crashes and whatever else. And then he was like, look, Bitcoin's back up to $30. I'm like, that's interesting. So then I bumped into Wences Cazares the next day or that week. And Wences sold me my first Bitcoin. So I was like, well, I was interested in, and he said, I said, where'd I get it from? He's like, I can sell you some. So I bought some from Wences. And, I think it was a very interesting moment for me when I saw how it worked and how you could just transfer the funds and how they were, really very different from the traditional banking world. And I went down the rabbit hole, saw the thing shoot up to $250 in Mt. Gox, and then I realized, then it crashed, and I was like, this is not going to go away. And I got the dev team at Civic to integrate, Gyft to integrate Bitcoin using BitPay into our platform, and we were up and running and selling gift cards. We had a couple of big articles on TechCrunch, and all of a sudden we were doing thousands and then millions of dollars a month in gift card sales on Bitcoin, which is great.
So you had a dev team that started working with Gyft that almost blended the Gyft model into the blockchain world before Civic became a thing. So it wasn't like Gyft ended and then Civic started. There was a bit of crossover. Is that fair to say?
There was. I only came up with the idea for Civic after I resigned from Gyft. Or at least I gave notice that I'd be leaving, and I was thinking about the idea. And I remember going to an event, and I had like an epiphany moment, and I was chatting to my co-founder at the time. We were trying to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to start a company. And I got back to him and I said, hey, listen, we were talking about doing voting. How about doing this? And we kind of just iterate and evolve the business over time. That's
interesting. So, what exactly was that epiphany moment? So, you just mentioned voting. Where were you? What was the moment that happened where you said, "Holy cow, this is a huge problem, and blockchain is the solution that can solve this"?
Well, the holy cow moment really is when you think about what Bitcoin really solves is the double spend problem, right? That's what it originally solved, double spending. The next natural step was this: if you can solve double spend, what other things are related to that? So double counting, where double counting is a problem, is obviously voting. So having an election where two people can cast multiple votes can sway an election, or not two, but multiple people can cast multiple votes. That's enough for people to have a recount, whether it's on a small scale or large scale. And so how do you make sure that people can't count two votes? How do you prevent the whole hanging Chad dilemma? How do you prevent situations where you can't tabulate votes in real time? I mean, doing a recount on a vote is insane. Like, you have people for days. Like, this is just nuts. So we thought about using Bitcoin and blockchain to solve that exact problem, and that's what we're building today. We're building long-term. Civic is a platform that's going to be able to allow voting using a blockchain to ensure that people don't double count their votes. And whether we wind up powering the identity layer for companies who are building their technology or we build it ourselves, I'm not sure. But the view for us is that we have to solve that problem of, the reason we call the company Civic is it's your civic duty to vote and exercise your democratic rights.
That's really interesting. I don't think I've ever thought about one of the main, and like you said, one of the probably the core use cases of Bitcoin and blockchain is really the prevention of fraud as it relates to money. And when you start to think about where is the biggest fraud possible and where does it have the biggest impact, you could start to see macro forces. I mean, in this case, voting, I think, is probably the best, and identity really is the fulcrum of where all fraud begins, right? Because if you can allocate everything to an identity, fraud goes down in a massive way. I've never really thought about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about Civic for a second. It had an ICO. It's been around for a little while now, and full disclosure, I own plenty of Civic. I love the platform. I think it's a great coin. Can you walk us through the Civic product and business model, kind of the top level pitch for anybody because I think everybody listening knows that it's an identity. They know the ticker, they know the price in Bittrex, but they might not know what your vision is and what the core business model is. So can you just walk us through that?
Sure. So Civic basically is an ID verification network, as it were. The idea is that when you're doing ID verification, when you're walking into a building, going through an airport, logging onto a website, using your ID credentials anywhere, those credentials are only as valuable as the person or company or organization asserting to that information. So when you pull out your driver's license, you walk into a bar, the reality is that the barman and the bouncer trusting that the DMV issued that license to you is not a fake license, right? So in the online world, we have the situation when you're accessing a website you need to be credentialed. So right now we use this notion of usernames and passwords, which are ridiculous because if someone hacks Equifax or wherever and gets your username and password or Yahoo, they can use it everywhere you use the same credentials. What we're effectively doing is taking identity, creating private keys, putting it onto your device and locking it using the device's mechanisms like PIN code, Face ID, Touch ID, etc. And we can add voice recognition as well. It just depends how secure you want it. And that actually effectively acts as a key holder. So your device is your key. And if you use your device, you can restore it. There's a way of doing that. But it means that if anyone hacks the third-party site, they cannot get access to your keys because they weren't stored there. They're stored on your device. So this makes the system so much more secure. The problem you have with traditional privacy, and you can argue that Facebook does this to an extent with Facebook Connect. But now, when you use your credentials to log into any website, Facebook's tracking it. With Civic, we're not tracking it because the blockchain has the hashes stored. So the site that's receiving the data checks with the blockchain, which, again, no one's tracking that. That's just between they can run their own node. And there's no history or there's no trail that you've actually logged into that website. So you can basically use your Civic credentials anywhere that's accepted, knowing that Civic's not tracking it, the data's not being transferred except with your permission, and the website accepting it, trust that this is a two-party system, it's them and you and no one else in between. And so the credentials that sit on your device have to be authenticated or validated by third parties, whether it's the DMV or it's a bank or it's Civic. That's the stuff which has to get done in the background. Once it's validated and the hashes are placed on the blockchain and the keys are on your device, the accepting party would need to pay for that in some way. It's a lot cheaper than what they pay for right now for online verification. But that's where the Civic token comes in, because the use of the token and why it's different to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in the sense is that we have to worry about things like correlation risk. So just because I'm accepting information and it tells me that you have an account at whatever Chase Bank, that's great. But now the person receiving the data knows that where you have accounts, and these are some of the. I can spend an hour talking about the correlation risks, etc. But you really want a token that's kind of like anonymous, and it's able to flow between the receiving party and the validator, and it enables a level of privacy. And it's also very, it's a smart contract, and it knows what the receiving party is looking for, and it can ensure that the receiving party's requirements are met. So it's a very specific utility token around ID verification, and that's really how the marketplace functions. So we see a future where governments, banks, many companies are contributing ID verification data into the network. Companies that are relying on that information are paying for it. It's 80% cheaper than it is anywhere else, because what we're doing is creating reusable ID verification credentials. So it's not having to go through a full ID check every time. You don't have to produce your passport every time, your driver's license every time. It's one set of credentials, sits on your device, you secure it. And the most important reason why we're doing it this way is that if you look at the Equifax hack, all your information gets out. With Civic, all your information is on your device. If you get hacked, well, that's okay, because the other 150 million people aren't going to get affected. And that's the key thing about Civic, is because we're focused on building a decentralized identity layer. Everyone is susceptible to whatever, gun to the head scenario you can imagine, but the network doesn't get compromised when that happens.
It's really interesting. The comparison to something like a Facebook OAuth, where you can log in with Facebook or log in with Twitter. Now, obviously, that is a massively centralized and exposed system, and they have the tracking. But I think for the average user, right? If I was going to tell my parents about Civic, that's something that they could wrap their head around. So I think that your identity is packaged into something, but it's because it's decentralized, there's very little risk. And it sounds like the Civic token, the reason why it's critical, and you can't just build this on, let's say, Ethereum or Rootstock or even on Bitcoin's blockchain with counterparty or whatever, is that you have individual, not necessarily privacy concerns, but correlation concerns that you have to solve in a unique way based on this unique problem. And that seems to be an emerging trend, an emerging problem in blockchain, especially with Ethereum, where they're starting to integrate the ZK Snark technology for privacy. Yeah. Because we're starting to see similar technologies. Is Civic going to be looking at other blockchain, cryptocurrencies or other blockchain solutions to integrate their privacy stuff, or are you guys looking to build that all in-house?
So we're actually going to be using, you mentioned RSK, we're actually going to be using RSK going forward for this. And so it will be built on RSK. We issued an ERC20 token while we're busy building up the network and whatnot. And there is a small chance we stay on ERC20 if, obviously the Bitcoin wars don't settle in the next month or two. But assuming that all comes to a head and everything settles, we'll be using RSK.
Got it. With the business model, you mentioned working with municipalities, with governments, with potentially large institutions, and also with consumers. And it sounds like there's two different potential ways to monetize this. One is B2B and one is B2C. What is Civic's current roadmap for monetization within your business model?
Well, our business model is very simple. Like we need to get the number of ID. So there are billions of identity-based transactions per day. We're digitizing that entire market. So by moving those ID transactions through the Civic marketplace, with we get a small percentage cut of every transaction. That's the business model. So as people pay each other for verifications, this happens already. There are thousands and hundreds of ID vendors worldwide. All we're doing is we're building a digital marketplace for all these ID vendors to come and offer their services to a network to many companies and think of it like the eBay for identity, where everyone has to pay each other to verify IDs. And this is what happens today. So people don't realize what a big industry this is. ID verification is a huge global industry. All we're doing is we're making it reusable so that you don't, like if you go and apply for a hypothetical example, if you went to want to be a driver for Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Postmates, all in like one day, each of them are going to pay, $50 or $60 to verify all your information every single time. So you pay $200. What they really should do is say, look, that's not really a core competency of ours into the verification. It's a cost that we have to pay to other people. How about we share that information? So with Civic, you do it once through Civic, and each company would wind up paying $15 as opposed to $60. And so so what we're going to do is we're going to bring the industry revenue down from like $200, let's say, down to $50, and make it, because it's reusable, everyone gets to save money there. Now, obviously, a ton of industry players are not going to like this, but this is what disruption is. And by making identity reusable, we're going to open up a lot more use cases for using digital identity than previously thought, because it's going to be a lot cheaper to do it.
I see. So the Uber, for example, they're spending, let's say, $200 because they need to go to Equifax or Experian or whoever to do a verification.
Well, they're spending, let's say they're spending 50, but then let's just say Lyft's spending 50 and Postmates and DoorDash. Okay. So in aggregate, they're spending $200. What really should happen is the first guy to do it say, hey, listen, it's all on the same day. This information is definitely not changing on a day-to-day basis. You can argue like a month from now, the DUI scan maybe, then you may have to update it. But if it was all happening in one day, they should share that cost. Now, right now, the industry players kind of like probably package and resell the data from the same day, but they charge everybody the same amount. And if you go to different vendors, then everyone's doing the same check multiple times. If I can put all your ID credentials on your device and I can timestamp them, cryptographically seal them, and guarantee it hasn't been changed, they should all be willing to accept that data, especially since it'll be pretty fresh, and pay a smaller fee, and you recover it quicker. And so that's the value. So the total cost of the industry might be $60, because we'll add a $10 fee for Civic onto that, but it's 60 divided by 4 as opposed to 50 times 4.
Got it. And one thing that I always think about. When I go home for Thanksgiving, I'm going to talk to my family, and I'm going to tell them about certain things that I believe in or don't believe in, and I'm going to walk through different business models. And in something like this, I think that they would definitely understand it. And the next question would be, well, how do you know people aren't faking their own identity when they set it up in some way, right? Like how? Yeah. And so, what is Civic's solution to that?
So, great question. So what we're going to be doing is, and we, right now, obviously, we check your email, we check your phone number, we verify that you're in control of those two access points. The next phase is adding driver's license scanning, passport scanning, etc. And when that comes in, you scan your driver's license, scan your passport, we do a check on the back end through our ID vendors, and then we ask you to do a selfie to map the photograph of your face back to the photo on file. And we can tell, using pretty sophisticated technology from our partners, that it's 80%, 90%, 95% chance that it's you, etc. Now, remember, trying to get to 100% across the entire network is something which we'd love to get one day, but that's never going to happen. It's not practical. But the real question is, can we reduce identity fraud by big orders of magnitude more than it is today? So today it's 1%. Can we go to 0.1%? Can we get to 0.01%? And that's what we're going to try and do. So yes, nothing is foolproof, but it's about reducing the risk to such an extent that it becomes almost financially not viable for fraudsters to try, because it'll just take too much time to try and get one that works. Sure,
especially when the existing solutions are, you can type in admin and hack 150 million people.
Exactly.
A big piece of this type of business, from what I could tell, I mean, this is true in any business, is the ability to get the biz dev side of the business dialed in, getting the Lyfts, getting the Postmates, getting the Ubers, etc., on board as a self-fulfilling network effect prophecy. In your opinion, just as the founder and visionary of the company, at what point or what client could you land where you would come back to the office and tell everybody that was the whale of all whales that we just landed?
Honestly, we probably landed a couple of those already. We have too much on our plate right now. Like the problem with Civic is that typically when a company gets the sort of profile we get, they have a lot more product under the belt and everything's working and they're busy scaling up. We're so far behind on the actual, the reality of our brand exceeds our capacity to deliver. We only have 20 people. And it's great because the brand promise is there. And look, we're way ahead of every other crypto company out there in terms of consumer products. So by our own measures, I think I'll be critical of ourselves and say, we could be a lot further along, or we wish we were. But the reality is we are a lot further ahead of everybody else. However, the expectations that everyone's got for Civic and what we're able to deliver in the very short term, I'm talking the next 3 months, is probably there's a bit of a gap, and I just need to balance it out because we have got so many biz dev inquiries coming through every day. I kid you not when it's like I tell you it's dozens a day, and we cannot handle it all. It's just not physically possible, and we hire more people doesn't solve the problem. It just makes it's going to make us go slower. So we have to pace ourselves. We have to make sure the product gets out the door. We've got some great releases coming out soon. We're going to scale this quickly, but biz dev is the least of our concerns as a company. It's just getting product out the door, and we've got big release this month and a few more in the next couple of months. So I think by next year, by 2018, it's really a year for scaling. But it took a bit to do.
Sure. It's an interesting time too, because I think many people, especially the retail investors, many people listening to this podcast right now, look at the market as, when I say market, that's in air quotes, they look at something like Bittrex or whatever, and they see a price and they assume that that's what the market is saying about a particular product, when in a capital market like NASDAQ or whatever you want to, anything trading, that's built on very different liquidity and earnings and public information. That's very, very different in terms of being able to predict a company's current state. Whereas in crypto, it's much more about the state of speculation as opposed to the state of a business. And I think that in itself is where a lot of arbitrage lies, is being able to identify companies that may have a lot of progress, but the speculation on the market is either above or below what the reality is of that particular company. And I think that's why putting a venture capital lens on top of the cryptocurrency space is so important, to be able to identify products and companies that we believe will go up.
Yeah, and I mean, let's just be frank. Like, most of these guys raising money have never built companies, never sold companies, don't know how to manage teams, how to manage people, how to produce code, ship product. I'm cringing here when I look at these things going, the hype cycle. I mean, people complain about the fact that I'm kind of anti-hype, as you've probably noticed. We don't go hyping Civic, we don't do city advertising and whatever else. I just communicate the long-term vision and mission. I try to be very grounded about things. And people get upset with me, like, Vinny, you go pump Civic. I'm like, no. That's the point. That's why we have this big distribution with so many people holding our tokens. It's because this is a long-term project, and we're not going to do short-term silly things just because we want to get the price up or down. It doesn't matter to us. The price in the short term does not matter. What matters is getting a functioning marketplace, ecosystem, and product together where people are using it and transactions are going through, and people can then at least see and experience the value of the product. Like the price is the price for the long-term benefit of the price. You need to make sure that the price reflects the value of the ecosystem and the future value of the ecosystem. And I think there's just too many coins out there where they're focusing on just pumping the price in the short term. And it's kind of exit scanning, right? Mm-hmm. Like we've locked up our tokens. We as a company won't sell tokens for a long time, but like technically at least for 12 months. But probably a lot longer than that. Again, that's not our goal. So make sure this is a functioning ecosystem. And I think people who get to the point where this is just not growing fast enough for them, or they're not seeing the volatility, those aren't the types of people we want in our ecosystem anyway. We want people who are just believers in the tech and making sure that this thing becomes we're very mission driven as a company, and we want to make sure we want to achieve our mission, our goals.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, along those lines, you guys did an ICO earlier this year, and it's crazy how even in a matter of months, the entire world has changed in terms of ICOs and things like that. What were some of the things about your ICO that worked well, and what are some of the things that you would have done differently? And along those lines, what are some of the things that you see now? Obviously, the hype cycle is insane right now, but what was your experience with that ICO? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Things like that.
Well, I think what we did differently from a lot of people is we actually implemented caps, so no one could buy more than 500K. We had a very broad distribution. We were very, I think, disciplined in how much money we took in and how we did it. And so I think and then we also made sure we had a product out the door and made sure people used the product as part of the process. So, I think it's a lot of things we liked about it, and everyone, people tend to call this the gold standard for how it should be done, and that's very flattering. But I think we did it in the right way. I think we actually were just very thoughtful about every single part of the process, and we have a lot of people very happy that the tokens trading at 4 times what they bought it at. It was up to 8 times at one point. And, you know, again, it's not about the speculation of it. This is about building a real valuable ecosystem, and this is the currency for our ecosystem. I mean, we publish our roadmap and people get confused. We said we're going to allow fiat at some point. No. Fiat is what you need to use to buy Civic tokens in order to participate and use the ecosystem. We need to have on-ramps and off-ramps so people can at least get in and out of it. But the entire ecosystem requires Civic, and that's how we built and designed it. And we're the largest holder of CVC. We've got 330 million CVC as a company, and so we're very incentivized to make sure this thing is rock solid and scalable and valuable in the long term. And that's how we're busy building it.
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
Well, Vinny, this has been super helpful. Really appreciate it. How can people support Civic? How can they help you out?
Thanks. Well, I think when you see situations where certain websites don't have verified ID processes and you're seeing fake content of yours on their site or people pretend to be you, I mean, we have this problem on I'm not going to call out specific names, but there's a ton of sites out there where if there was a way of verifying identity for people, it would make the product quality a lot better. You know, tell them about, docs.civic.com. Go and look at our API documentation. And, we want this to be something which I think is a real utility. This should be available on demand, and you should have verified ID. So we're definitely looking for people to get involved and spreading the word about what Civic is. It's the world of, privacy and anonymity are two very different things. And I think privacy is a world where it's a need-to-know basis, and anonymity is nobody knows. And sometimes I think, anonymity is bad, as we all know. But privacy isn't. Privacy is really good. If you're able to keep your privacy but verify that you're a real person, like if you walk into a bar and they just need to know that you're over 21, that's sufficient. And as long as they can verify that is the case, why do they need to be able to scan your driver's license and get your home address and everything else? And some bars do that. So I think we need to work towards a world where we focus on our privacy more. And so I think just understanding Civic, reading the white paper if you haven't, and just believing in the mission and helping drive the adoption would be great.
Terrific. Vinny, thanks so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Carter. Appreciate it.
All right. Okay.